So my wife asked me to make a little outdoor table, and I wanted an excuse to buy a steam bender. So I think this might be a good project for it. I've This is pretty much as far as I've thought about it. I think I'm going for four legs, and I want to bend it this way down and then out, so it kind of looks like it'll like peel out on the top and bottom. And then she said she wants like a little shelf on the bottom. And I think 18 inches by 18 inches, and then I'll do. I think that kind of cubey pattern that everybody's seen before. I've never done that, so I think that might be an interesting thing to do for this and the bottom shelf. And then I have some air dried oak that I'm gonna try for doing these legs, and they'll come up and down like that. This sketch is as far as I've sort of thought about it, so I'm just gonna start making stuff and see how that goes. So I'm gonna try making the top part out of walnut, and whatever this is, I think it's maple. It is really heavy, and I just got it from my dad. And then some black walnut. This is kind of the end of my supply, so I'm hoping there's gonna be enough. Sandwiching the end grain together kind of looks like this. So I feel like that looks different enough that the pattern should look good. Well, at least I hope. We'll find out. So now I just have to plane them all down to the same thickness. You can always tell the age of a workshop by the rings inside the dust collector. Each one represents a year. Now that the thicknesses are the same, we're going to move over to the table saw and cut a straight edge on it, because that'll make it actually the only way we can cut the angle is with a straight edge on it. So now I have a bunch of pieces that have the same angle cut on them. Now I gotta set up the fence at a specific distance so that this edge matches this one, and then the next angle one. So there's a giant hole here because I can't fit the top plate on. So I found the scrap piece of MDF, and it just so happens to be the exact same width as that thing, so I just traced it out, and just because I don't want to lose any of the smaller pieces in there. Yeah, so I'm gonna do that. That didn't turn out the worst. And then I have a little finishing nail stuck in the end to mimic the little detent in the top plate to keep it from getting too tippy, I guess. Oh, not bad. After doing a little test cut, it seems we're pretty much bang on. So it's just this one needs to be the same as this one, and I think we're there. Or at least go close enough for wood tolerances. So now I can just start cutting all the strips. Not too excited about the really narrow thing there, but yeah, I'll have to just try and be careful. That didn't turn out too bad, and I still have all my fingers, so that's nice. The long maple ones, that's a pretty good fit there. Like I'm quite happy with that one. These shorter ones, like I'm really pushing it for some of the scrap pieces. Like, do I honestly need? Maybe I don't know how many pieces I'll get out of this. Maybe like 4 or 5. But yeah, every bit might help. We'll see. And as you can see, there's a little bit of friction here, so you can guess what it smells like in here. Walnut didn't have any problem with that. It went through just fine. It probably has something to do with me having just a crosscut blade on there for ripping along the grain, but who knows? It really could be anything. Okay, so now I gotta put it all together, and then it's just gonna be a bunch of taping and gluing after that. At the end of all that, I came out with about 6, or not about, exactly, 6 2-foot long pieces, because the walnut is 2 foot long. Bit of gap in some of them for sure. So I'll have to see what happens with that. And of course, at the end of always gluing, hands get nice like that. It looks like my wedding ring is going to be glued on too, so I think my wife will appreciate that. But other than that, I'm just going to wait for these to dry till tomorrow. Yeah, and then just come back and see what's next. All right. So it's the next day now, and I took it out of the tape, and I gave it just a quick scrape with the chisel. So I think they're mostly flat now. And I also got a pretty respectable sized tape ball out of it, so that was nice. So now I guess, yeah, I'll start cutting them up into sections and getting them placed to see how that will look. I think I might put them on top. What a mess in here. I got this piece of plastic. Oh my gosh, polyacrylic. So I might put that on there. And yesterday I put this little test piece on here. Oh, okay, just want to see how well the glue comes off, and that actually came off not too bad. Yeah, so I think I might put everything on here. So I just did a quick calculation here, and I want this to be about 18 inches across. So for that, I'll need 11 pieces this way, and then going up 12 pieces. So that is 132 pieces needed just for the top part. So that gives me about 1.125 inch per piece. So I was thinking about cutting them into 1/2 inch pieces. So I think that will be quite okay. Yeah, for the number of pieces that I need. So that's good. That's a good sign. Making a bit of progress on the first piece. This is the good pile, and by good I mean, yeah, like it's tight on the inside. This pile over here is going to be not quite as tight. You can see some glue between those joints, so I'll use them if I have to, but they won't be the first ones. And this is my whoopsie pile. I brought the saw up maybe a little too fast before it stopped, so that was fun. Yeah, so making a little bit of progress. Just 6 more to go after this. Well, that was a lot of cutting. Thankfully this pile is bigger than that one, or especially this one. Yeah, I didn't even end up doing the sketchy stuff with these smaller pieces, because I feel like if I have enough, then that's fine, and I'll do something else with these. But if I really need to, I can actually come back and get a couple more bites out of that one. And it also came out with not so much a tape ball, but more like the Leaning Tower of tape. So yeah, what am I doing now? Oh, okay, yeah, I gotta put them all in the plexiglass and yeah, figure out what it's gonna look like. Unfortunately, this plexiglass is only about 13.5 inches wide. It's a good length this way, 18, because I wanted about 18 squared. So yes, I gotta find something else. And that something else is this. An even bigger piece of plexiglass. Holy cow. I got this thing years ago whenever I got the table saw. The guy just asked me if I wanted it, and I said, sure, I'll find a use for it. And here we are years later. This makes me happy. This completely justifies all my hoarding tendencies. I can't wait to tell my wife. So I have the general layout kind of done for where things are going to be going. Chamfer on the corners, so I might be able to save a couple of these pieces. And I still have some leftover pieces there, and a few over there. So I think I have enough for a second bottom shelf. I'll find out. I'll cross that bridge when I get to it. So I have the clamps and stuff set up. Just got these 2 bigger ones on either side, and then these little scrap pieces, which are just a 1/2 inch shorter than the distance between here and here, so I can get clamping pressure this way and then this way as well. The thing with clamping all these tiny little pieces that are actually pretty thin, considering how wide it is that it can lift up. So I found these things in the other room. I don't know what they are or what they're used for, but they're heavy. So I'm gonna put those there, and hopefully that'll help prevent a little bit of that. And I'm a little bit nervous about this. Giving it like some little test clamps, there's like always these little gaps in between, and some spots it like gets pretty bad where I guess it's just compounding error. But yeah, so I'm just gonna run with it anyway and hope for the best. Okay, let's see how well my gluing to the plexiglass idea goes. Because I'm going to try like flexing it and just seeing if it sort of pops off. Oh wow, that works so well. Nice. Okay. So I got the leg pieces cut out. They're just over 4 feet long and just under 3/4 of an inch wide. This is air-dried lumber from my dad's backyard, and I also made them about 3 inches wide. This end's a little bit gnarly, but so be it. Yeah, hopefully I don't screw it up because I only have these 4 pieces. I'm not sure if I have more or not, but I don't want to find out. So yeah, we'll just go with this. Here's the little steam chamber I made. I just made it out of 4-inch PVC sewer pipe. Got it from the hardware store, although it comes in 10-foot lengths, and then I transported it very safely back to the house. And then I just cut it off to be, this is roughly 52 inches long. So the plan is to hook up this little steam generator that just came in from Lee Valley on Tuesday, and it goes into the one end. This will be on a slight tilt with some holes in the bottom to let the condensation out, and a steam vent on the other side. I cut in these little, I put these little 1/2-inch dowels just below center line, and that's where the piece of wood will sit, and then it'll sit in there for, I'll do roughly an hour probably, with this little cap on the end. So I still have a few things to do to get it all set up, and I still have to make a jig for actually bending it afterwards, so I'll do that next. This is the jig I ended up making, and it's roughly almost 22 inches long, just out of 2x4s put together. I'm gonna actually screw it to this thing to really give it something to hold on to. So yeah, the plan is to secure this to this, have this part steam, and then quickly come over here, put it on this, bend it around while clamping it, and having a compression strap, which I still have to make. And apparently that's something that really helps with keeping these in check while they dry. So I'll make that next and then go from there. So to buy a real compression strap off Lee Valley is about $122. So I'm going to try making my own homemade one. So yeah, why spend money when you can just get frustrated at home for cheaper? And I'm going to try this out of this 3/4 inch 24 gauge galvanized strapping. And I figured 2 of these together is about the same thickness as what the one from Lee Valley is, although that one's made of spring steel, and this is just some cheap mild galvanized steel. So yeah, we're gonna give it a try anyway. So I was doing a bit of a test steam, and then this started happening. I don't think it's supposed to look like that. It's only on the one, I guess because the steam's coming in here. And this was only for after it started making steam. Maybe like it took about 5 minutes, and then it just started sagging like that. Like there's barely any condensation coming out of the drain hole either. So yeah, back to the drawing board with this one. So after looking around online, it seems like people do use PVC pipe. I think what the problem here is that this was a sewer PVC pipe. So they have, instead of a Schedule 40 PVC pipe, and this one has a thinner wall than the Schedule 40 one. And I also think it's because the pipe wasn't continuously supported. And after looking into it a little bit more, it seems that PVC pipe has a glass transition temperature, which just means it gets all floppy at around 100 degrees Celsius, which is exactly what steam is. And in Freedom units, that's about 212 Fahrenheit. Now, without trying to think too much about it, I just kind of went with the old adage that bigger is better. So now we are looking at a 4-inch ABS pipe, and I have it continuously supported all the way under and not just simply supported. So I think in combination with those two things that it'll be much better results. And as you can see, the thickness of this is like at least 4 times roughly. And it has a glass transition temperature of 105 degrees Celsius. So we get 5 more degrees to work with. And I think since it's not pressurized, it shouldn't get too much higher than that. But yeah, here's hoping this is the last time I have to do this. Okay, so here's the game plan. We have the steam box there. It's been in there for just over an hour now. They say about an hour per inch, and we have 3/4 inches, so technically it only needed 45 minutes, but I'm gonna give it another 15 minutes even after this too, just in case. As far as I'm aware, it just increases the drying time, which I'm okay with. But yeah, so when that's ready, I'm going to be unthreading that, pulling it out, moving it over to the compression strap. I have one end clamped there, and then the other end is there, and then I'm going to have a helper pull it I'm going to clamp it there and then start pulling it around my little jig. I had to move the lathe out of the way because just one of the drawbacks of having a relatively small shop. And I'm going to clamp it as it comes along and wraps finally around to the end here on my jig that is so elegantly secured to the work table. And just in case it has trouble bending, because it's a 3/4 inch by 3 inch wide piece of oak, I've made a persuasion arm that can go around the end of the compression strap. So hopefully all these things put together actually has a success, but we'll find out. So it's been about 8 days, and this was the original one I put in the form. So, and then after one day I transferred it over to the drying jig, and this one I put in the day after, so it's been about 7 days, and it just stayed with the compression strap on it. And as you can see, both of them are failures. The first one, I did hear a crack, and I could see it on the edge. You can even see the compression strap marks, which I'm okay with that. I think I can just sand that out, but that giant crack, yeah, that's a no-no. And like it even like had a giant kink in it, like it didn't follow the radius. And then on the inside of both of them, I kind of have this like this wrinkling. So after I saw the failure on this first one, the difference between this one is that I soaked this one in the other length of that PVC pipe that I originally tried using for the steamer. I was able to soak this in there for 24 hours, and then I steamed it for 2 hours as well, but I still got this failure. It let go. I thought this was a screw mark at first, but no, that's just the wood fibers that actually broke and separated in that line. So that was an interesting one. And on this end, it's maybe slightly better. So I think soaking it was slightly better, but and then as you can see on the original, yeah, it just didn't like that. So didn't want to bend in that direction. According to Veritas's little steam bending instructions, red and white oak, which I don't know what this is, maybe white, says can bend to the smallest radii of 2 inches, and this was 3 1/4 inches. So I knew it was pushing it, but I thought I could get away with it. Clearly not. Yeah, I think I was just asking too much from this wood, so I'm just gonna have to change gears here and figure out a new plan. Coming back to the drawing board after the first failure with the leg, I figured that's okay. I'll just get rid of the one leg, and then I'll have these on an angle on 3s. And then the second one failed. So now I'm at a 2-legged table, and I think I have an idea to actually make this work. So I think I have to increase the radius on the bed. No, I have to increase the radius on the bed. So I'm thinking about taking just this one and going further over like that. And then this one kind of crossing over like that. So that's really sturdy this way, but back and forth, I think I'm going to have to put, I'm going to have to put some feet that are like kind of like a semicircle foot, I guess, or something like that. I'm gonna have to figure out something to be able to handle any loads or rotation that way. But I think this bend would be quite capable of that wood, and I don't think it'd be asking too much of it. Plus I only have 2 pieces left, so I'm kind of just gonna try working with this. And yeah, so I need to make some form work to be able to make this bend then. So that's what I'm going to do next. So I decided to make the new forms out of MDF, 3/4 inch, and I was able to actually fit 2 pieces of it in the back of the RAV4. So those 2 will be the main form and then the cooling rack. And it just made a lot of dust, so I did it outside. And out of a 4x8 sheet, that's all that's left. And hopefully this works better than the last one. Well, that was actually a lot harder than I was expecting it to be. Um, in the middle, even with getting help setting it up, and then a random little emergency with somebody's fingers and a weight in the other room. And then with some, this was a little bit too short here, so a chisel and a hammer had to do quick work of that to make that fit in there, because I accidentally started it a little bit too far away. But, and then it already looks like there was all these little compression kink things, and I heard a tiny little bit of cracking, so oh well. Yeah, we'll see what happens in about I'll leave that there for a few days and transfer it over to the cooling rack and take a look at it after. Hopefully it worked out. These two turned out pretty good. Clearly much bigger radius. And there's, yeah, some holes on this side, and then on the other side it kind of ended up pinching the holes closed, but that's probably the worst of the wrinkling. So I already set them up and just marked kind of where they will intersect with each other. So now I'm just gonna cut it halfway so that I can put them together, and then yeah, cut the ends to what I need them to be and keep going. So after a rough cut and a lot of work with the Dremel and a little bit of persuasion, it actually went together not too bad. So next I made some brackets for just the top here. That'll be securing it to the main board piece. These are just a couple pieces of 2" by 1/4" flat bar I had kicking around. And they're actually pretty easy. All I had to do was just sacrifice 3 carbide tips. So, not bad. And so yeah, so the idea is that this will sit on this side, and this will be screwed to here, and then a bunch of other screws will be screwed to the top part. And as you can tell, I wasn't paying attention, and I countersunk both sides of the middle holes, but that doesn't matter too much. So yeah, so that worked out not too bad, and hopefully that'll keep it nice and rigid. So after setting it up and getting it roughly flat on there, and then roughly flat there, it seems like I have to nip off the ends of my little brackets here, because somebody wasn't really thinking too much ahead, which seems to be a main theme for this little project, so yay for that. So just a little recap to catch up on the things that I forgot to film. I made these feet. I had one extra piece of oak that was about 3" wide, and then I used the extras. These are actually like the 3 strips on this side and 1 strip on this side from making the 4 pieces here. With the feet, they weren't sitting quite flat, so I ended up routering them out a little bit to keep them on an angle. That was a pain, and I wouldn't do that again. And then I screwed in the underside of these feet just to there. So, and then on the top I finished sanding it, and then I cut the straights and the 45s on the table saw, and that all went pretty smooth except for one pucker moment. I hope I didn't dull my blade too much. And then I made these 4 pieces that kind of slide on to here to cover those screw marks from the brackets. I realistically only need to make this 2 pieces, but I cut it the wrong way first. And then I've made some trim pieces and just painted them Early American, which is the same as what I painted the base, which is, I guess, the same as really what you paint everything, it seems. So yeah, so I have to finish putting on those trim pieces, and then I'll be pretty much ready. Seems like some of the finishing nails I put in while gluing this got lost and made their way up here somehow. So that's great. So sanding down the underside of the feet, just getting them ready to put these thicker sections on. And some of these screws weren't quite as flush, so I decided to tighten them up. And on this side, whenever I was tightening this guy, it just split the entire foot right in 2 pieces. And that is right where that little imperfection was as well, where those termites or worms or whatever. So yeah, now it's completely split in 2, so that's nice. I think I'm just gonna put the foot on anyway, because that will be more than enough support. I just have to make sure they're secured to both sides, but just right when you're near the end. My original, whoops, back here. My original plan for the feet was to use the adjustable ones that I borrowed off a dishwasher. But just with the fact that it's a lot higher now, I'm just gonna put the little furniture pads on it. And that's pretty much done, finally. For the finish, I put on a polyurethane, a couple of coats of polyurethane, and then sanded that down and just put like a furniture polish. So the top's more like satin, but the rest is like a lot more glossy, which I don't particularly care at this point. But yeah, I think it turned out not too bad. Now we just have to test it out to see if it works. Not bad, not bad. Yeah, I think we're good. Hey, what do you think?